Although, and this is going to be a story description of my existence and exit of the Mormon cult and my multiple betrayals that I have had at their hands. And so anyone else going through this needs to hear another story of someone leaving that fucking piece of shit. And yes, I will probably be one of the angry ones that curses and yells and is not very nice to the church or to the people, because the church has never done anything for me except for make me feel like shit for 38 fucking years. Because yes, I was born into the church. My grandparents were helped initiate the cult into northwestern Iowa. I mean, so it's like I was 3 or 4 generations in. Now I'm trying to keep my ex-wife from baptizing my 8-year-old daughter. You know, who the fuck thinks it's a good idea to sign an eternal contract at 8? I mean, I didn't understand it. You know, I'm ex-military. I wanted to be a police officer, so I have a strong sense of duty. So it was my duty to go and sign this contract. And therefore, I grew up in small town Iowa as the only member in my church, in my school. I mean, we had to drive a half an hour just to the nearest building. So yeah, my childhood was scarred because I was an outsider, which, you know, I don't know if I would have evolved into being more extroverted had I not been so isolated because of, you know, one, also, if you can't tell, this is the middle of winter, so I'm not quite as tan, but, you know, just having black hair and brown eyes in a largely Scandinavian, Dutch populated area. So yeah, that didn't help matters either, even though there was some Laotians and one black family. But yeah, what was I saying? And that's a little bit of my. And so at 8, actually shortly after I was baptized, was the first time I tried killing myself. So I don't know if that, you know, but yeah, I think that's more correlation, not causation. But yes, I've had severe mental health issues because ever since I was 8, always feeling like you are never good enough. So I'm going through, as well as the simple fact that, you know, I'm a sexual creature just like anyone else. So you hear this a lot, you know, Mr. Atheist is one that has helped me. Jimmy Snow, I believe is his real name, kind of helped me with dealing with the trauma from my adolescence. Yeah, just because you find someone sexually attractive or you have fantasies, you know, you're a fucking monster. You're a piece of shit. You're garbage. And you have to carry that with you throughout all my adolescence. You know, I was afraid to chase after some girls because it made me feel like, because I thought I was garbage. You know, they weren't members, but, you know, I grew up in places where there were no members for me to date. So that made it even, so it's like, am I doing something wrong by being attracted to this young lady? Because she's not a member. I mean, I'm just now coming to terms with that. I mean, it's like the first, as well as, you know, I never went on a mission because my first job was Walmart. I started at 17, you know, as a cashier, pushed carts, did all that shit. You know, I saved $3,500 at the age of 18, but my dad lost his job, so I gave him the money. Also, I wanted to join the Army at 18. You know, I was ready to join right out of high school. I didn't join until I was 24, but my dad convinced me to go on a mission first before joining the army. He went on a mission to Colombia. He was a convert to the church, unfortunately. But yeah. And so, because my dad took all my money to help me with the family from Iowa to Ohio, and then just losing myself trying to get that money back. I spent $200 on, I didn't have on going to the dentist so I could start the process of going on a mission. And then just the treatment I had in that Delaware ward, especially since, I've always had facial hair. And I've always worked blue-collar jobs. So there's another thing that just made me feel like shit for so many years, was the fact that I couldn't go on a mission, And then my sense of duty to my family, I had to provide for them as much as I could, which wasn't much, because I couldn't get very good jobs because I couldn't sell myself because I felt like shit because the church taught me that I was shit. It was just this abusive, destructive force in my life. I know some people, some of these other people are, very into the church and they're very learned and doctorate, after they leave. With me, it was far more visceral with me because I was a freak, an outsider, no matter where I went, inside the church, outside the church. Because I was in the church, and, you have those behaviors, those constrictions on your mind. Even, I was been non-practicing most of my life. I quit practice. I didn't stop believing, which was what happened in the last couple of weeks, is I stopped believing. But no, my ex-wife broke me back into the church. And that's when I found out, when I was taught that, tithing is 10% pre-tax, not 10% in a take-home. Which I thought was bullshit, but because we're taught that our leaders are divinely inspired, I had to listen to them. I was not allowed to disagree with him. Fucking bullshit. That was one of the first times when I was really starting to doubt the church. When it's like, okay, they're starting to say things that aren't true to Christianity. Was it Bednar, that cocksucker? Fuck, hearing him. I didn't, like I said, I'm not very learned, because every time I try to read something or listen to conference or anything like that, all it did is just confound this: you are garbage, you are filth. So just having that compounded, and because I wasn't reading the scriptures, I was still filth. So I was filth either way because of this self-brainwashing that was forced onto me at a young age. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, Bendar, about, if you're dating a girl and she's got more than one piercing, you need to leave her because she's not a good person. It's like, no, that's not Christ-like. Who the fuck are you? As well as he just looked like someone who would abuse power. So I hope he doesn't get in charge of the church. Someone needs to blow his fucking head off, because it's just me venting. I'm not threatening anyone's life. I live in Iowa. And I don't own a firearm at the moment. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, as well as, the more recent one I was exposed to when going through, was it Brother Jake's videos? I mean, this is the support I've had. You know, my little brother is a homosexual. He left the church at 17. I've been talking to him. And so it's like, because my ex-wife drugged me back into the church, you know, I had a difficulty dealing with him because I was trying to be a good Mormon, being a good person by following these belief structures. I mean, it took until 5 years ago was I able to reconcile. It's like, no, I'd say just like with racism, just like with I didn't realize how racist those pieces of shit at the top were. I mean, it was horrible, some of the things that, I mean, it wasn't just, oh, we love our brothers and sisters, but we haven't divinely inspired. We had to trust everything. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I had it, just like with blacks getting the priesthood, I had to say, oh no, this is just a mistake done by people's own prejudice and bias because of the generation that they are unable to allow revelation to exist because of their own bias. Because if they don't believe it to be true, it'd take an incredibly profound person to be convinced that it is true if you want it not to. And of course, as most of us know, the spirit is just a load of bullshit. Feels good to say. Fucking feels good to say. That's it. Now, you see. Okay. So that made my relationship with my brother very difficult until I reconciled that. And so that dropped my faith, as well as in my own personal life. You know, one of my bishops, when I was going to the University of Iowa here in town, you know, because I am a veteran and, you know, I am different because I've always had a beard ever since I got out of the Army. Well, before the Army, I always had facial hair, and after the Army, I've always had facial hair, except for when I had to work at a cheese factory, because you didn't want hair in cheese. That was a shitty job. So yeah, you know, little things like that, you know. I trimmed it. It used to be really long too. Used to say, oh, he's like Brigham Young. Now that would be an insult. It's kind of an insult back then. Was, you know, learning some of the shit he taught, especially with his Adam Trinity bullshit. What am I saying? What am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying right now.